Hey, Off-Season After Dark fans, welcome here to episode 38. And we get back to the American Conference with Darrien Starling here to talk some UTSA Roadrunner football. I know for most of you that watch our group show and pay attention to SEC After Dark, you'll know that we have, Hammer and Bossman from Biscuits are A&M guys and around Austin. So have some overlapping areas there. But Darrien, want to thank you for being here. Glad to have you. Always trying to get people from new teams, new conferences. I think we've talked so far. We've had a few American guests talked. Charlotte, we had South Florida, and I think UAB are the ones. So I haven't had half the conference yet, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what got you following UTSA, and where our listeners can find you in the space and, your content.
Yeah, so you can find me just at Darrien Starling on pretty much all social platforms, but I'm mainly focused on Twitter and Substack. Those are sort of my two content hubs.
That's a free Substack, by the way, people. So it's worth the follow.
It is free. It is free. There'll be some paid stuff later, but right now everything is free, and we'll do some extra stuff later on. But I've been with what got me into UTSA is because I played there, right? I was a part of that first class back in 2010 when Coach Coker signed us. I did go through the red shirt year, and I played the first 4 seasons, was a starting corner for UTSA. Since then, I'm just a diehard sports fan, right? I've grew up as a sports fan, and I have old photos of for people who I'm a Cowboys fan, so I have old photos of me as a baby when they'd won their last championship, Super Bowl. But anyway, UTSA, I've been covering it. One of the reasons I wanted to cover it though is because at the time when I was going to school and getting my undergrad, I was basically going to school to do this full time. I didn't land in this full time, but I was going there full time, and I felt that schools in the group of 5 or now group of 6 did not get the type of coverage that I thought was necessary and needed, and I thought that I could bring some of that type of coverage to UTSA.
And I think that's a great point. Like being able to be just independent hobbyist podcasters like I am and like a lot of people are, it's helped G6 teams more than anybody else, because you have people that want to cover them who, if it had to be a full-time job, you couldn't do it. Right. But as someone who can spend a few hours a week doing that, it's been absolutely great for content of smaller schools with smaller media followings.
100%, man. And I worked with mostly all of the bigger sports media companies in some capacity, right? I was contributing for a lot of folks. More recently for Sporting News, SB Nation. I did some work with Spike TV way back in the day. I covered the USC Conference Chronicles back with SB Nation back in the Sam Darnold days. So I
okay. Hold on,
can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I accidentally hit the mute button on my.
And that music thing popped up again briefly, but I think we'll be all right. Yeah.
Yeah, but I covered them in back in the day. So I've been all over the place, and what I didn't like was the guardrails. I wanted the autonomy to be able to cover the game as much as I can and through my lens, and really focus in on what people care about and not just trying to farm clicks, right? So I cover now the American Conference overall. For years it had just been UTSA, but I'm starting to sort of spread my wings a little bit, because I think the conference in itself needs someone who is willing to step in and take on the entire conference and cover it with the amount of detail that I think is necessary. So that's the gap that I'm trying to fill, and I'm excited about this season.
Good. Yeah, I'm excited to hear that. So I've like I said, had a few different American ones on there, but you don't see people as much who are focusing on the whole conferences
Right.
in this space. So that'll be good. But let's jump into UTSA a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the grand scheme of FBS football, they're a much newer program than most. And they've found a lot of success where other teams haven't. Jeff Traylor has been very successful since getting there in 2020. So kind of overall, in the Traylor era, what has the mood around the program been? Are they happy with, the progress? Are the last 2 years being 7-6 a little disappointing? Kind of what's the feeling there?
Yeah, listen, I think it's mostly been a positive feeling, right? There's really no one in a fan base that are really ready to move on from Jeff Traylor. I think he's done a great job, man. He's brought UTSA championships. We didn't expect to have any championships as quick in the footballs from a football standpoint, and he's brought that. So we got to a point where we started to dominate the Conference USA, which prompted the move up to the American Conference. And the American Conference has been a little bit more tricky. I think recruiting right now is a lot more tricky because UTSA does not have deep pockets compared to, the entire country, but they're not at the top of the American Conference, even from a financial standpoint. So
what are they like compared with G6 teams in that region? So North Texas, Rice, Tulane, what are they like compared with those teams?
So I think they compare pretty well to North Texas and what Rice is willing to spend.
Yeah.
From an athletic standpoint. But like Tulane, they're not close to where Tulane's at. Now Tulane's a little bit differently from my understanding. I have not. So for a lot of these schools, I have relationships with people amongst their or within their sort of administration. I've talked to a lot of the athletic directors, some on camera, some off camera. So North Texas, I'm supposed to be going up to North Texas to meet with their AD at some point. Whenever I'm gonna try to get that done on the schedule. But from what I understand from their operation, I think UTSA and them are in close proximity in terms of money. Tulane's different because they have their donor base is a lot more established, and they've had the benefit of winning championships and making to the CFP playoff, which they got. I want to say they took home, I think it was $8.8 million, and then $6 million of it is going to go back into the program, I believe. So like whenever you have things like that, like for example, what Tulane just got this past year from their CFP appearance, UTSA's roster is not going to be worth that much coming up here in 2027, right? So they're looking for a roster. They're hoping to have a roster around $5 million, worth around $5 million. It's going to be tough to do, but that's at least what they're aiming for based on my conversations with UTSA athletic director, Lisa Campos, which that's a free thing that's on my Substack as well, if people are interested in that. But I think
one of the Substack things I like that you did was I think it's the one that's pinned, but where you talk about, that the NIL revenue sharing money, that's not all coming from the university. I think a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah. It's a very complex environment, man. I think why I'm so focused in on it is because not only is it new to everyone, but no one is actually explaining what's happening in like layman's terms. And that's what I'm trying to do. A lot of it is like you have a lot of these lawyers, which I work with lawyers every day in my day job, so I understand working with them. But I say that because they will sometimes get in legal talk and it doesn't translate well to supporters and fans, and they care about stuff that supporters and fans don't want to. I am trying my best to disseminate that information and communicate it in a way to where it's digestible for people. But it's a very complex time because there's no book on how to figure out this NIL and rev share stuff. Like
absolutely,
everybody's has a different approach. When I was down in South Florida meeting with Rob Higgins at USF, his approach and how he's looking at things and how that university is positioning themselves to thrive in this environment is completely different from what UTSA is doing. It's completely different from what Temple is doing. It's completely different from what UNT is doing. So everybody's throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And it's going to be interesting to see whose strategy gives them the advantage as the years go by.
And what is a blueprint that works for one school might totally fail somewhere else too. It's not, there's very rarely are there two like situations that are going to be home runs for both schools, unless you're in that elite top 10 where it's just throw money at everything.
Right. Well, and this goes beyond UTSA and beyond the American, but I am really invested in athletic directors and the new role that they have, right? Like they now have to all sort of put on CEO, CFO hats and be more, they have to be more businessmen and women than they've been before, where they were just like hell-bent on administration and being a school administrator and an athletic administrator, right? And running athletic departments. Now you got to know how to be savvy around the business landscape.
And one thing that will be, I think, a ramification of that, and it was already happening before, but the days of older and retired head coaches becoming the AD, that's probably done. And we were seeing it less and less anyway. This might have been the death knell for that, just because it's out of your depth. You're not worrying about that as much as a head coach. You can't. There's not enough hours in the day to do all those things.
Well, it's just going to be more business-minded people, right? Like I think you'll start seeing more CEO types pop up, like what USF is doing with Rob Higgins. You're going to start seeing that more across the landscape, because this, like, people also don't realize how much they have to sell and appease to donors and fans now, because now you're asking, fans who don't have big money to donate. And whenever you do that, you're not sort of working with the people at the top. Now you're working with everybody. Those people are going to give you money based on relationship and connectivity and feeling connected to the program's goals. And that's a completely different mindset that athletic director has to sort of be in, to now say like, hey, we have to switch up our messaging to appease these people instead of appeasing the people we've been trying to please for years now. So it's interesting seeing a lot of their strategies now. I was even highlighting something that North Texas did. I was looking at their strategic plan from 3 years ago versus the one that they released today. And I was just like, the messaging is totally different.
Okay.
Because like I said, they have to appease to a different subset of people, because now they're more interested in like, hey, instead of us trying to find the top donors that can give us millions of dollars, which it's always a priority, they also have to worry about growing that donor base to 3, 4, 5,000 and get people that work normal jobs to contribute monthly, because they need to find a way to have some sort of consistent revenue that they can rely on.
And the more people you bring under the tent, in the long term, that's going to benefit you a lot. So
100%.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's transition a little bit, talk about briefly last season for UTSA.
Yeah.
So, 6-6 regular season, won the bowl game, which, since you guys have switched to the American Conference, the overall records haven't been as great. But Traylor's done extremely well in bowl games. They've won all of them since they've switched to the conference. And one of the episodes I had about a month ago, it was a guy who does an FIU podcast. So talked a little bit about the bowl game there. Yeah. And you guys certainly look good in the bowl game. But rest of the season wise, what was the feeling last year?
Yeah, it was a frustrating season, man. I think like whenever you start to dominate a conference, like UTSA dominated the last 2 years of the Conference USA.
Yep.
It gave expectation to fans. Now fans want more, And the first year in the American was 9-3. That was Frank Harris's last year. And then these last 2 years under the new quarterback, Owen McCown, they haven't been as good, which you didn't expect them to be, especially the year I guess their second year in the American. You expected a drop off, which they went from 9-3 to 7-6 or 6-6.
Yep.
So that's expected. But last year left a sour taste in people's mouths because it was one of those situations where it was like, hey, well, now that we have the established quarterback, we have sort of put some more weapons around him. We expect to now see them take a step forward. And they were flat. That record, them going 6-6 a consecutive year, is a representative of what UTSA is right now. They're not going upward right now. And I think Traylor is fighting a situation where UTSA could be going down. Like this season, 2027 is a big year for Traylor and UTSA because they gotta get this ship back on the right path here. I think people are starting to grow a little concerned about what's going on. It's not at panic level yet, but I think like if UTSA doesn't fail, I think they need to win 8 games. I don't know if they will, but in order to like, if another 6-6 season, I think people are going to start wondering what the future is going to look like everywhere. I think that'll be the first time you'll see Traylor kind of in a hot seat.
Okay, that's a good take. Yeah, that's something we always talk about. I probably watched him play 3 or 4 games last year, and they looked absolutely great against Tulane. Then you follow it up the next week and look terrible against South Florida. So I don't know how you had the polar opposites in a 2-game span there.
Yeah. Well, to me, I don't want to go too analytical into it, but like I've been very vocal about the offensive coordinator that they had last season, Justin Burke.
Yeah.
And Traylor
came up a couple weeks ago. I did a Kentucky episode. Sorry to cut you off there, but he, now the tight ends coach at Kentucky. So for some of our listeners, we had mentioned that. Yeah.
Yeah. He was the play caller for UTSA last year, and Traylor gave him an opportunity. He got promoted into that role, and I think that's fine. I've been analyzing football for a while, and I've helped, with game plans and things like that over the years. So I understand the effectiveness of an offense very, very well. And one thing with Justin Burke, and it bit UTSA in the behind, is UTSA got into a position where whenever he was on scripts, they were great. That offense is going to flow. But the second, if they're playing a defensive coordinator who will make an adjustment, and not like a small tweak, an actual full adjustment in a second half, or the second quarter of a game once they figure UTSA offense out, there was never a plan B that Justin Burke had for that. And almost, you can go back through every single game, you can notice the switch when the offense starts to struggle. It was kind of that simple. So that's why you'll see sometimes in games like Burke will just have a defensive coordinator on his heels, and he'll work them like a summer job. Okay. And then he'll come against a USF or something like that, and that defensive coordinator says, you know what? Actually, we didn't blitz enough in the first half. We're going to put pressure on this quarterback and give them some different looks and see how they adjust, and they don't adjust well. So that's one factor on it. And I think the other factor is, as much as I think Owen McCown is a serviceable quarterback, there's just limitations to his game. And I think teams across the conference are learning that. Yeah. I don't think he took the step forward that UTSA probably expected him to.
I think absolutely fair. I thought he would be better last year than he was.
Yeah. Although, like, if you ask the people inside the building, they feel differently. I think that's because Coach Traylor and the McCowns are very, very close. I can tell you not everybody's happy about that, but it is what it is. But I definitely think that if I'm just being as objective and honest as possible, I think he limits where UTSA can go, and it's hard for me to see them winning a title with him at quarterback. And I'm not saying he's bad, but I just think about he's not bad at all. Actually, he's pretty good. But is he title winning good? I don't know about that.
That makes sense. Yeah, enough. I don't. You probably don't know this, Darrien, but I'm originally a Minnesota guy. So his dad, Josh, is the quarterbacks coach for the Vikings.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But I think you hit the nail on the head there that he wasn't necessarily bad or poor. There just wasn't the expected progression forward. Right. You would hope in year 3 as a starter this year that does happen.
It has to. This is his last year. His last shot at it. I hope he's healthy.
Yeah. But let's go back to the coaching stuff a little bit. You talked about Justin Burke, the offensive coordinator. He had, Will Stein, now the head coach at Kentucky, who we had a Kentucky guy on a month or so ago, had been at UTSA before. Burke is going with him to Kentucky. And like I told you off screen, before that, we had a Western Kentucky guy. So Rick Bowie, who was the O coordinator there last year, is now at UTSA. Had a lot of success before at Abilene at the FCS level, and Valdosta State, one of the better D2 programs. So the guy's put up points and moved the ball wherever he's been. What is the mood around getting Rick Bowie in there? And do you think the way he calls plays in an offense will help McCown?
Yeah, so I'd say the mood, I think most people around UTSA was ready for Burke to go. So the mood on just having a new offensive coordinator, there's a bounce, and there's intrigue around that. And I think people are really interested to see what he brings to the table. In terms of what I've seen from, I've looked at a little bit of tape from the spring practices that I probably am not supposed to have, but shout out to my folks in San Antonio for showing me some love. But I think that the tricky part was McCown wasn't able to really participate in the spring because he was recovering from some injuries.
Okay.
But so we'll see what that looks like. What I will say is I saw a lot more bunch concepts with him. I think that McCown throws, I think some of the concepts that I've seen on tape, I think it will put McCown in a position. I think it'll put him in a position to make decisions a lot faster, get the ball out of his hands a lot faster, and rely on some of the receivers who are catching the ball to do their work. I think that could help UTSA out. UTSA needs that. We don't have the big 50-50 deep threats that we used to have with people like Zachary Franklin and JT Clark back in the day and Joshua Cephas. So we have a different type of receiver, and those are going to be your more yak guys and things like that. So from what I've seen, he wants to get people in space. We just got to see if it works, right? And I think the one thing that UTSA does have going for it is a lot of the recruits and things that they brought in, those guys operate pretty well in space. So we'll see. I'm excited to see what he's going to bring to the table, but there's a lot of complex defenses in the American Conference, so he's going to have to be on his best game.
Okay. And, with that, in the passing game, you talked about a lot of those athletes in space. What does the loss of Devin McEwen mean? Receiver transfer to Ohio State, obviously a massive, loss for you guys.
Yeah, it's a big loss for sure. I have a theory though on McEwen. I think that UTSA did not use him although he was great, they didn't. He is a receiver that needs big time guys outside of him.
Okay. That
could freeze him up to get one-on-ones. They were lining him up on the outside and playing him like he was basically doing everything, right?
Yeah.
They're throwing him deep balls, they're throwing him screens. And I actually think he's more of a traditional slot receiver if you just look at his skill set, but he can do other things, which UTSA was having him do.
Do you think they did that because they needed to get him and Amador on the field at the same time?
Probably so. Probably so. But UTSA also just didn't have we just hadn't had great downfield receivers and guys who could actually do the job. AJ Wilson came on, but it took him a while to get comfortable within the offense and things like that. So he became a downfield threat later in the season. A lot of that was when McEwen was out with an injury, though, and he got an opportunity to show himself. But I just think he bailed UTSA out because they was like, hey, we need a guy to go stretch the field. We need a guy to like go beat this person one-on-one. You're going to call McEwen and go do that. So I actually think Ohio State's going to be lucky, like assuming that he plays with Jeremiah Smith on the outside of him and like him now getting one-on-ones, he should feast up there, honestly, assuming he can get on the field. But yeah, I mean, I think Amador is a really good player. But he's another guy, right? If they start lining him up on the outside next year and throwing him the ball deep downfield, I'm gonna say, what the hell are y'all doing? Right?
That's fair. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I'm hoping, like I said, some of the clips I've seen from Bowie's offense over the course of the spring, I think that he's going to be able to get these guys in positions where they can do some damage. But it is going to be important that they find a downfield threat. And if they don't find one, you're going to have them probably doing the same thing with some of the guys they trust the most, putting them in positions where they may not be their strongest.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then at the running back position, so Robert Henry, 1,000-yard rusher, is out of eligibility. But Will Henderson and Marion Peterson both have shown flashes. And, last year, going into the year, we would have said they probably have one of the better running back rooms in the G6.
Yeah.
We still are probably saying that with those two guys coming back.
Yeah, I think Will Henderson is going to be a contender for offensive player of the year in the conference.
Okay.
He is a difference maker. His speed is, I don't know if you know his track record, but like his literal track record.
I don't.
Yeah, he was like a top guy in 100. I want to say he was running like 10-2 in the 100. He's insanely fast. And yeah, I just expect big things out of him. Like he's going to be UTSA's biggest weapon. This is probably going to be UTSA's last year with him because he's probably going to go get big money somewhere else. So, I expect him, Marion Peterson too, but like the offense will be built around Will Henderson. He'll be the focal point. So, I expect him to statistically lead the conference in some areas, whether that's all purpose or just flat out rushing numbers.
Nice. No, that's helpful. And then Peterson, transferred in from Southern Cal.
Yeah.
Had a few touchdowns last year, didn't play a ton.
Yeah.
Will he be that number 2 back? Is that pretty much solidified?
You know what? With the running backs, man, you never know. Maybe so. Yeah.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of guys that they like. He's obviously one of them. But yeah, it's going to be Will Henderson, and I think with game time, it's going to depend on who's going to get the carries that go out there. It'll probably be him, but you never know with some of the running backs, especially the way these guys get banged up and stuff all the time.
And especially him, he's a big-bodied, physical player, so that could happen.
Yeah.
Then tight end, I thought, was an interesting position. Very few teams lost as much talent in the tight end portal as you guys did, with Thomas going to Texas A&M and Overmeyer. Was it Houston, right, where Overmeyer went to?
Yeah.
But then you brought in Brandon Young from North Texas.
Yeah.
So will he be the guy? What's that room looking like? I'll be honest, with losing Thomas and Overmeyer, I can't say I know much about anybody else on the roster at tight end.
Yeah, I actually think, and I want to look them up so I don't miss their names. I actually think UTSA's tight end room is deep. I don't think they're going to miss a beat, honestly.
One thing I noticed is that a guy I hadn't known much about him before, but Isaiah Butler Tanner was just a horse of a guy. I mean, I think that's 6'6", 265. I mean, that's a massive guy at tight end.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I'm saying. Is that the kid from I'm thinking about the kid that was the top guy from the D2, I think, college. Is that him? Maybe not. Either way,
I don't think he was a transfer in there.
Okay. Either way, at tight end, I'm like,
is Miles Campbell the guy you're thinking of?
Miles Campbell. There you go.
Okay, he was at North Carolina Central. Yeah.
Yeah, I expect him to play. I mean, it's gonna be his last year. I believe it'll be his last year because he was at Florida A&M before
that. Yes, yeah. And at Tennessee before that. Yes.
Yeah, I expect him to be a player. They didn't bring him in to sit on the bench. And UTSA runs three. They'll play 3-4 tight ends, right? Ty Roop is someone else. He's like 6'7". I expect him to be someone. He has really good hands. I expect him. We'll probably see him a little bit. UTSA, I mean, Owen McCown loves to throw to those big body tight ends. So, I just think tight end room, UTSA just has a knack for having some really, really good players. So, like, as good as the guys that we just lost were, and they were great, I think the guys they have, they'll be just fine, honestly. I think tight end, they'll be good.
Okay. That's good to know, always helpful. At the O-line, returning three guys from what I saw, all center and right guard, right tackle, relative to the other G6 teams I've had on here, that's pretty good. Very few of them are returning three or more O-linemen. Now you lose Missouri and Timmons on that left side. But the rest of the O-line is back, and they were all decent players.
Yeah, no, the offensive line should be good. They ran block very, very well last year. And that was an issue the season before that. So it was really good to see them right the ship on that. I think they start to struggle toward the end of the season. I think that's why UTSA started to struggle a little bit. The offensive line was getting overwhelmed. They had a lot of guys injured, a lot of guys go down, a lot of guys in and out. So I just think it put strain on the offensive line. But I think they'll be fine. But it is really hard to say until we see what Bowie's going to do offensively, and how he's going to try to exploit defenses. But I think from an offensive line perspective, I'm not that concerned. Especially, I mean, you always gotta make sure that right tackle spot's going to be good when you have a left-handed quarterback and things like that. But I think they'll be fine offensive line wise anyway.
Good. And they usually have it up front, like you said there. At the D line, one thing I noticed was they did bring in multiple portal guys at that position. You had Fight from Louisiana, a pair of Texas Tech guys, and then a UTEP guy. Which Baldwin is pretty solid at UTEP.
I'm actually shocked they got him.
Yeah, absolutely. And losing Ozawalu to Oklahoma, and who was the guy that went to Cincinnati? I'm blanking on his name.
I am too, actually.
Okay, but they did lose a guy to Cincinnati.
Yeah,
I know that.
So many guys come and go these days.
Tutu. That's it. Yeah. Tutu. How do you expect the D line wise? Is that a position of concern? Do you think they'll be all right there?
Actually, it is a position of concern for me, mainly because last year was the first year UTSA in a while hadn't had like the top defensive end in the conference. If you think about the years prior to that, there was Trey Moore, who went on to Texas, got drafted by the Dolphins. Trey Moore was the conference defensive player of the year, and the year after that, what's our guy name that ended up going to Virginia, West Virginia?
Yes. Edge guy. I'm blanking on.
All the changes. Jamori Robinson. There you go. So they had Jamori Robinson was also conference defensive player of the year. So like UTSA typically, you can just go back through our history, even back to like the days when I was there. We had Marcus Davenport on the defensive line, just wreaking havoc, right? But even like the other guys, like your Jason Neals, and we had a lot of we always produced big dogs at the defensive on the defensive line, the interior line and on the edge. And last year we just didn't have that as much. Our interior guys were pretty good, but we just couldn't get out to the quarterback as good as they typically do. And I think that's like who's going to be that big time edge rusher that's going to be like a stalwart that they're going to try to send doubles at that's going to free up the other guys.
Yeah.
That's going to be
at the edge spot. It's like you're almost solely reliant on guys that portal in this spring.
Right. Which I think Ball from UTEP is going to be a really, really big.
Yeah.
I can't believe they got him, but I guess I get it. He's a San Antonio native, right? So he wanted to come back home. I think his family was really, really happy to get him back home. But I expect him to be a day one starter for them. He's probably going to step right in because he played pretty well for UTEP in the time that he got as a freshman. So we'll see. But there's a lot of questions there because I think because we didn't really have that dominant force on the defensive line, it put strain on the rest on the back four, and it exposed UTSA a bit. People were getting at UTSA quite a bit because they had all time to throw.
And at that level, you're going to do that with
right.
And there aren't many QBs you can let him sit back there and not pay the price for it. But let's go to you mentioned the back four. Looking at D-backs. You lost a bit there too, Wyrick at SMU, Davin Martin went to Texas Tech, and then Meyer going to Cincinnati. It's to some extent it's a tough pill to swallow, but with those schools, it's like that's where we're at now. When you're going to a P4 school, you do understand it a little bit, no,
I think. Davin Martin going to Texas Tech, I don't think UTSA fans are going to miss him. In fact, people were I remember when the Texas Tech rumors started with him, nobody believed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like legit, nobody believed it. I actually talked to him directly. He reached out and was like, "Yeah, no, it's true. I am going to Texas Tech," and I was like, "Wow, okay." I was happy for the kid. I think, good for him that he was a longer, rangier body.
Yeah.
And I can see why he has decent ball skills as well. I can see why Texas Tech was attracted to him. I think he was very up and down for UTSA. So people were like, oh, well, right. And I think some of the other guys, Jimmy Warwick is one that sucks, but I get it. He's from Dallas, right? So SMU is a good fit for him. He can play near his family and things like that. I actually met I went to a event prior to, was it last season? And I sat at the banquet table with him and I got to meet him and chat with him a little bit. Really nice guy. And I wish him nothing but the best as well up in SMU. Like UTSA, honestly, they needed turnover in those positions. They just haven't been good enough.
Okay.
All of these guys, they were good. I'm glad they got opportunities, but I think UTSA could benefit from a whole new back secondary. The guys they brought in, though, the Chapman brothers and one of the guys from Oklahoma State and things like that. I think it's RJ Lester and some of the other guys. I'm excited to see what they're going to do. There's a lot of hype around them. I also know a little bit of, or I've heard some of the money that they gave the Chapman brother that recently came.
Okay.
They spent some change to get him. I think on one of the sites he was a 4-star JUCO transfer. So they were really, really excited to get him in. So him and his twin brother, or having both of the Chapmans at both corner spots is something that they're really looking forward to. So I actually invite the turnover in that position for UTSA. I don't think the losses are going to hurt that bad because the secondary hasn't been good for the last couple of years, especially last season. So we'll see what it looks like.
Nice. Yeah, I did see the name, the two Chapmans. I wasn't sure. Yeah, I assume they were related, but didn't know any of that for sure. And the other one I saw as a starter, Nate Robinson Jr. coming in. Is that I'm assuming his dad is the Nate Robinson who played in the NBA and also played football at Washington?
I have no idea.
Okay.
If I mean, maybe I have no idea if he's actually I probably should know that. I don't think he's related to that Nate Robinson. They don't look alike.
I have no idea, but I
Listen,
don't either. I was just wondering.
Yeah, I know he's from San Antonio. We'll see. We'll
probably
we'll
not.
see.
Probably not.
Yeah, they expect him to play. I know he's someone that they're going to be expecting to play pretty early whenever he gets in. So yeah, I mean, they got to do something about that safety position, right? They have to. I think Elijah Newell was a guy that's a safety right now. He's a young guy. He's played. He's been in the rotation, but he was one of the guys I remember watching his high school film, and I said he's going to be a day one. He's going to be someone that is sort of in the rotation soon as he comes on campus. And last year was his second year, and to be fair, his freshman year he did get time. He got a lot of time, but you can tell he was a freshman. He was trying to get at the speed of the game. Last year he was a little bit better, got a little bit more time. Still not there yet. I don't think I'm confident enough to say, hey, he's going to be a starter for UTSA long term. So yeah, they definitely needed to reach into the portal and get some guys, and we'll see what they do. But there's going to be a lot of eyes on the defensive back group, especially from me, because they just haven't been good enough as a unit.
Okay, appreciate that. Last but not least, with linebacker position, graduate top two tacklers with Banks and Blackshear. Bring in Osandu, the transfer from Cal, who didn't play a lot when he was at Cal. Yeah. But can you tell us anything about the linebacker position there?
Yeah, the linebacker position should be pretty fine. Owen Pee Wee is going to be a name that you're always going to hear. He's a playmaker for UTSA. Yeah. The linebacker position, we'll see. They have often been hit or miss by game. It just depends on, like, it's funny, like following the school and following every single game. It's almost like, and just talking to some of the people within the program as the season progresses and in the off season, you can see like when they struggle to like grasp a concept that the offense, that the opposing offense has or is offering them, and it's really, really apparent at the linebacker position. There were so many like, I forget one of the games. I think it was Texas State. It was one of the games they played early on in the season, and there was these miscommunications on gap responsibility over and over and over again at the linebacker position, and I was just like, somebody's not communicating to these guys where they need to be, or they're just not understanding what the coach is putting down right now. And it will be like that. You cut on the tape. Sometimes you'll see him play lights out, and then you'll cut on the tape the next game, and you'll see like a completely different bunch, and you're like, what the hell's going on here? So, they also sit in the middle of the defense, so they can hide a little bit of the time whenever things go wrong. But it's going to be an important position for those guys to fill out. It was interesting. You mentioned Blackshear. It was interesting seeing him come along and become an actual player for UTSA. His first year, he didn't really get much time. He seemed raw. He made some mistakes when he did get time, but it was good to see him last year sort of come into his own and establish himself. But it's the thing, man. You got these people for 1 or 2 years, and that's it. You finally get them to develop well, and they're gone. So that's the nature of the beast.
It is, yeah. And kind of like you mentioned with, Peterson, there's a chance that could happen. If there's another good year there, well, you develop them, and then
Henderson,
or Henderson, sorry, yeah. But I'm glad we could dive into that roster there. I always find that segment particularly interesting, and the different guests I have. Now let's talk a bit about expectations for next year, and then relative UTSA and the rest of the Americans. Yeah. So kind of one of my focuses here, and then both in the writing I do, is on coaching carousel, hot seat, things like that. I don't remember a conference ever having as much coaching turnaround in one off season as the American did this year. Yeah. It was wild. I mean, Tulane, North Texas, South Florida, Memphis,
Yeah.
All UAB.
Yeah.
All, having coaching changes. So that stability has to help going into 2026.
For UTSA?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does, but the one thing about stability and the one thing about some of this stuff is sometimes you get to a corner of the space where that stability can also blend with stubbornness. And
it's having multiple friends who are Iowa Hawkeyes. I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, I think we're starting to see some of that from Traylor. I think, like, if I rewind it back 3 years ago, everything he said was golden, and people would just eat everything up. And what I've noticed over these last couple of years, more specifically, is people are not always buying what he's putting down. People are starting to get frustrated with some of the same rhetoric and some of the same things over and over and over. And people will starting to get frustrated with some of the decisions. And I think that's so. Here's a thing that's really interesting to me. Now, Traylor's relationship with the McCowns is great, but what it's hurt is they do not recruit the quarterback position at all. There's a couple of reasons for that. They can't go buy a quarterback right now.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have the money to do so. So I also get that, like, Traylor's hands is tied because he's like, okay, well, like, I have McCown on a discount because of the relationship that he has, and he's probably the best I got and the best of my options right now. But they're not really bringing people in that can push him at all. Like, I like Tennyson is his backup. He's a Gilmer guy. And I say Gilmer guy because Traylor's from Gilmer as well.
Yes.
And that's where he built his legacy. And I like Tennyson. I think he can be a good quarterback, right? But right now, the way he's positioned, he's not going to challenge Owen McCown. They're not even. I mean, they hardly would give him game time whenever the game was out of reach. And I think it's intentional why they do that. They don't want any type of like question of who their starting quarterback is. And I think some of that is the nepotism involved in it, but it's also like they can't afford to somewhat tick him off, because if he goes away, they don't really have options. So one of the things I'm thinking about this season is, like, first off, people recognize that, and it does frustrate people.
Yeah.
Secondly, people, like I said earlier, recognize that, like, you know what, McCown is good, but he has a limited skill set, and that limits that lowers the ceiling of where UTSA can go. And thirdly, if UTSA doesn't compete at the top of the conference this season, is Traylor going to walk? Like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen after that? Because this is supposed to be the year with your quarterback that you've sort of like basically told recruits and transfers who even think about it, hey, you got to beat that guy out. If not, blah, blah, blah. If you don't win it this year, you don't have money to go get another quarterback or what we think is a good quarterback. What does that mean for Traylor's legacy and UTSA's future with Traylor? I don't know.
Yeah. And if you're in that situation, you have to go get a QB next offseason, it's almost certainly someone who was successful at the FCS level or a backup at a P4 school that wants to go start somewhere.
Right.
So
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a risk. It's a risk, but it's a risk that they haven't even they're only getting they're not getting any transfer portal guys. They're getting high school quarterbacks and putting them in the fray. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know. But wait, you asked me about expectations were you asking me expectations for the season?
I think part of just within the conference. And
for UTSA, I think So I'm gonna give you my opinion, and then I'm gonna give you like where I think the fan base is. I think the fan base is getting a little frustrated with their recent performances, recent last 2 seasons. And I think for the fan base to be happy, they have to go 8+.
Okay.
8 wins or plus. Even 8 wins might be tricky, but 8 wins or more.
I did, I always look at the projected win totals on, on the FanDuel or any of the sites. 7.5 is what they have as the over under, and that's probably where it should be if you're looking. Yeah.
You know what? I don't know. If I'm being honest, I think, and I'm just putting my objective hat on. I'm gonna take like my alma mater bias out of it. If I'm being totally objective, I think 6.5 is probably closer.
You put it down one, okay.
Yeah, like even that's kind of like I'm not expecting a ton from UTSA this season. If I'm being honest, like the reason I feel like that is because number one, I just have a lot more exposure to what else is out there now that I'm covering the entire conference. And I look at the resources sort of like I've gotten deeper into what each team has brought in across the conference. And I just keep seeing UTSA sort of like having this gradual step down. And I think Traylor and some of the things that he's done has kept them getting 6 wins. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these schools that UTSA has been normally better than start to gain ground, because I think they are. And I'm actually really worried about UTSA this season. I'm worried that they either go 6-6 again in the regular season, or maybe 5-7. That's what I mean. Yeah. I hope not, but everything I'm seeing out of the program, I don't know. There's just a lot of concern because I'm also worried about the quarterback. Right, he had to sit out for a reason. He apparently played injured all last year. If he's not healthy and not 100%, what is?
And you talked about, you didn't really give that number 2 guy any meaningful time last year, even when there were options. So you don't have anybody after him.
Yeah, not experienced anyway. He has some pretty good arm talent. Brandon Tennyson does, and I get on well with his people and things like that. So I have relationships all over this thing, and but I'll be the first to tell him and his folks that, like, or not even tell them, but I just think he doesn't have enough experience.
Yeah,
and I would. What's interesting is against Texas A&M last year, he got to do a couple of drives, and he threw probably the best single pass of the season. Like, he threw a touchdown. I think it was like 30 or 40-yard touchdown, beautiful ball placement and things like that. And then you just never see him again. And it's like, I mean, you saw him a little bit, but like, give that guy a little bit of a run just to get his experience up, because you never know if your quarterback goes down. You don't want to have someone in there that's incapable. But if McCown isn't healthy next year, how can they expect to win games with a quarterback who barely has any live snaps?
Like, you can't. Yeah, that's fair. Now, in looking around at the rest of the conference, so I did an article, like a coldest to hottest seat for each conference.
Yeah.
And the American was actually the most recent one I did. Mm-hmm. But I knew there was turnover coaching wise. I didn't realize it was as extreme though. 11 of the 14 head coaches are either in their first or second year in the conference.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yep.
I mean, that's wild. So you get to that point and it's tough to say who's on the hottest seat, because the established guys, Monken, Newberry, Traylor, none of them are on the hot seat at all. So you're then by nature looking at, history and our do schools have a penchant for a longer leash and so on. And it's tough. So like going into the conference this year, who are the teams you expect to compete for the title? Are there any dark horses? Will it be the same old? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So actually, I have all right. Top of the conference, I do expect the more resource-rich schools to compete at the top of the conference. So you'll see Memphis. I love Charles Huff, by the way. I think that was a really good pickup.
So I am for the day job. I'm a professor at Marshall. I'm in my office now at Marshall working.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Charles Huff is
heck of a coach. Yeah,
heck of a coach.
I was sad to lose him here.
Yeah, so he's someone that I think you'll see Memphis there. South Florida. I didn't like that hire as much as some other people did. I understand it, right? I understand it, and
100%.
What was funny is like the more people I talked to, I was actually talking to Matt Baker. He writes for The Athletic.
Okay.
I did a sort of show with him that I put on my Substack, or it's going on my Substack, talking about South Florida, because he's kind of out there, and like he has some interesting thoughts of just about that hire in itself. So it's interesting to hear you sort of have similar thoughts about it. But here's what I'll say. In talking to Rob Higgins about it, I asked like what made him the guy. And I mean he listed off a couple of reasons, but as I went back and watched my conversation with him and reflected on my conversation with him the whole time, he was more about building something, at least sort of this runway to get into a P4 conference pretty soon. And I think he wanted someone that I almost feel like he wanted someone that is like a first-time head coach. It's kind of following the goalish route, right? It was the same thing with him whenever he came in, right? I think they
also did that with Jeff Scott before, and it failed miserably.
Yeah, right, so, right.
Yeah.
But like when I look at that, I'm like, well, he probably wants someone that probably won't jump after the first season.
Yeah.
Because if you go get one of these sort of hotshot guys, they could literally leave in one season.
Like Charles Huff,
right?
We just talked about,
right. But like him, it's kind of a, like I think he'll be there for a couple. They could go and win conference this year. I don't think he's leaving this year anyway, especially with the way that they're trying to they're maxing out rev share and things like that. And they're trying to they likely sold him on the idea of we're in the American Conference for the next couple of years. The second it is time to realign, we're already positioned to go up. And if not, we're going to operate like a P4 team anyway. Their budget, I was looking at their budgets last year, and I think they were like 130 something million, or close to 130 million total operating budget. I think the next closest was like 70 million. I think it was
when I had the Charlotte guy on, he was saying something like that, and it was almost double.
Yeah, it was almost exactly.
Yeah.
They have a way bigger operation going on than anybody else in the conference, and so anyway, I don't know if I expect them to win conference or anything like that, but they'll probably be a good team. They were able to spend some good money on a few guys, on quite a few guys actually. So they'll probably be good. Tulane's always going to be hell to deal with. Another,
I think ECU is going to be all right this year.
That's literally who I was going to say my dark horse was.
Yeah,
ECU is probably the team that I think teams should be worried about across the conference, because they're kind of floating under the radar, but they do have enough resources to be competitive enough to where they're putting together. I think they're going to have a really good team this year. I mean, people kind of underestimate the fact that they went, what was it, 9-4 last season, or 8-4, 8-4,
9-4. Yeah, they lost 2 conference games only.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of under the radar. Like people are not talking about them enough. I actually talked to one of their coaches a few weeks ago, and he seemed really optimistic about things. It was also pretty nice that I think Blake Harrell, their head coach, is subscribed to my Substack. He sent me a nice message.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he sent me a nice message, man. Whenever I said that I had I was having my firstborn about a month ago, and I thought that was really cool of him. But yeah, I think ECU. If I had to pick one dark horse, and I don't even know, it's weird because I don't know if they're considered a dark horse, but people aren't. Everybody's talking about USF, Memphis, Tulane. So from that respect, I think ECU is a team that like better be careful. They could end up being champions, man.
Their projected win total is also 7.5. I'm checking that now. Their non-con game is Alabama. Of course, UTSA's is Texas, so you are having the one paycheck game. But a team I'm curious to see, and they won't be in contention to win it yet, but they were awful last year. I think Tim Albin is a really good coach. I'm curious to see the growth he can have at Charlotte because he was good at Ohio.
Yeah.
Multiple guys have been, but I like that hire a lot at the time. I'm curious to see how he can do at Charlotte.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how he does there too. Another team I'm thinking about as well is FAU. Mm-hmm. FAU has sort of an interesting project. I think they have a little bit more money than people realize, but I think they got to, one of the big things, they got to pay their staff better. That's a thing that people talk about, but FAU has some quiet momentum that I think could start to materialize a little bit. And the academies, man, like Army and Navy are always going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Oh. I think I'm good now.
Yep. Navy was also an 8.5 projected win total. The preview I read, that guy did pick Navy to win the conference regular season.
Yeah, Braxton Woodson is going to be their quarterback. And the way they run offense there, he's perfect for that. We've seen a little bit of that in the bowl game. They're going to be tough to deal with. And Monken at Army up in West Point, like any given year, right?
They
get the right people around there with the way they run offense and things like that. It's the problem with teams like Navy and Army every single time, man, is no one, and I've talked to a lot of the coordinators or just coaches that are on staffs that have to deal with them in the conference. They always say, well, the entire, like when you get a schedule, and I actually did a Substack piece about this, but like we as people who like cover the sport and like in the media, but also fans in general, look at the schedule completely different than coaches do. And when a coach gets that schedule, obviously, you got the non-conference games and how you want to manage those, right? But a lot of what people don't realize the coaches are looking at is preparation throughout the season.
Yeah.
How much time am I going to be able to prepare for Army and Navy? Like, what week does that fall on? Is that
funny you say that? When I was a grad assistant at Northwestern State, it was looking at the schedule from the O coordinator. It's the good teams we were playing. Did they play Nickel State right before? Because that film was totally worthless because they were an option team.
Right.
It didn't help you at all to look at it.
Right. So you know exactly, right? So like when coaches get these, they're like, okay, like how they're just game planning on prep.
Yeah.
And like almost every like coaches hate to play them at the end of like sort of toward the end of the year.
Yeah.
Like you love to play them before a bye week.
Exactly. I was going to say that you want to
you love them to be off the back of a bye week, so you literally have time to hunker down, get the team focused on it. But like if you're playing them late in the year after you've rallied off 3-4 games back to back, and you don't even have a Thursday game or something like that where you can buy an extra 3 days, you're kind of screwed because that week a preparation sucks because you're every week you're preparing against spread teams. And then you have to prepare for a team that is just physical and is going to beat you up, right? And I mean, you even think about recruiting, right? They're not recruiting guys like you don't see a whole bunch of great interior D linemen in the conference because this is a spread conference. You need bodies. You need a lot of people are standing up now before the snap. So it's just a difficult thing to prepare for, man. So they're always, a possible, team to win it.
And I see you guys have the long break before Navy this coming year.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, I always ask my guests two questions before we leave. The first one, which coach in the American is on the hottest seat going into this year? And like I said, it's tough because with 11 of the 14 being in year 1 or 2, there isn't an obvious choice. And I think you could go a lot of different directions with that.
That's a very tricky one.
One, and this guy won't get fired this year. Zach Kitley, if they don't get a winning record, he could be going into 27. I love that hire. I still think he'll do well there, but after last year, I think it's a different situation there.
Yeah, I think he's a young guy. Yeah. It's just tough. It's tough. That's a good one to bring up. And I can 100% see that, because when you're that young, they're gonna have less patience. A lot of the time, if things are just not turning around. That's a tough one. Like, so that one's. I don't want to just give you bull crap on that one. Okay. What I will go back to is, I think the mood changes quite considerably if Jeff Traylor doesn't get 8. So if he has another 6-6 season, the mood changes fast.
Okay.
I think the mood changes fast. I don't think it's going to be like pushing them out or anything, but like, I think people's patience is already starting to, run its course, and I think people will start asking questions, and that'll be a kind of a surprising one, right? Because you look at what he's done at UTSA, and he, in theory, he'd never be someone that they'd even consider moving on from. No. But I think the conversation would change if they don't actually take a step forward this season.
Okay. I like that input. That's good. And then the last question I ask is the reverse side of that coin. Which coach in the conference do you think is most likely to get a blue blood or a P4 job with a good season? There were several of them in this conference last year.
Yeah.
But who do you think that would be now? My pick is a guy we've already talked about a bit today. I think I would have to lean Charles Huff if that was our.
Yeah, Charles Huff was probably like a top, because I think he'll leave. He'll just we've already seen him, but he'll actually take it. And I think he's like that kind of guy. Like, he'll be there if he'll.
And I also think he's transparent about being that guy.
Yeah,
he's not telling you. He never said I'll be here forever. No, it's I'm going to do a good job and win while I'm here.
Yeah, 100%. Charles Huff is definitely one.
I do wonder. Go for it. I'll chime in after.
Yeah, I think the Blake Harrell one is interesting, only because if he wins, let's posit a scenario where they win conference, which I don't think is
it's not out there to say. I don't think
it's not. I'm just why wouldn't somebody go get him? He has a lot of he's I think he's someone that you can build around. He's obviously built a really good culture around that. The way his staff talks about him is great. I think he's also operating near the top of the conference, and he doesn't have the resources of some of the people that's next to him. So he's doing a little bit more with less. If they do as well as I think they are going to do this year, he's going to get some knocks at the door. And I won't. I mean, Traylor's another one too. He's taking interviews at A&M and Houston and other places, and Texas Tech has always been circling him and things like that. But there is the only reason I'm bringing him back into this is because there is a lot of people who think that he's going to leave when McCown leaves.
Okay.
That's a thought, and that's why some people are like he's been one of the most vocal people about not having enough money.
Okay.
And not having enough resources to do his job. And I think that if UTSA flames out and just does horribly and he looks at the landscape and someone offers him an out, I think he'd take it at that particular point in time if he could.
Yeah, the two that I, like in this conversation, I always look at their background and potential job openings.
Yeah.
I mentioned Huff. He's a Maryland guy, from the state of Maryland. Mike Loxley could get fired this year. Things have not been going well there. Yeah. The other one, Brian Newberry, been very successful at Navy, is a Baylor grad. Yeah. Dave Aranda was on my hottest seat in the Big 12. So if Newberry has another good year at Navy and Aranda loses his job, I wonder if he's a guy that Baylor gives a call to.
He certainly will. Navy's going to be good again.
Yeah, they are.
They are. So
yeah,
he might just be waiting his turn.
Who knows? Yeah. But Darrien, I want to thank you for being here. And we've reached the end of our time. And again, listeners out there, you can see his tags down at the bottom, and I'll get those out to you on our postings that you're seeing here. But again, appreciate you being here, Darrien. It was great talking about UTSA football.
Yep. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you.